we go ahead and start?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's start the slides. Oh, also, just hi, everybody. Hope you guys are doing good. Stay safe. Let's go ahead and start. All right, let's go back to the beginning. All right, so I'm pretty sure most of you guys went to the intro section, but this is CodePath. We're just offering free courses for you guys. Again, we introduced ourselves before at the intro, but I'm Ethan. I grew up in Irvine. I'm a first-year CS major. Well, technically, I'm still a CSE major, but I'm in the process of transferring in my free time, just like going to the beach. Yeah, that's basically it.
Hey, everyone. My name is Minja. I'm a first-year data science major. I'm going to be one of your tech fellows this quarter, and I'm excited to get started.
Let's go ahead and introduce Derek and Hermaine too, if you guys want to give a quick, brief introduction.
I'll go first. Hi, guys. I'm Derek. I'm one of the iOS directors. I'm going to be working with Ethan and Minja to help run the sessions every week and answer any questions you guys have.
Hey guys, so I'm Hermaine. I'm a fourth-year CS major. I'm also one of the iOS directors, and I'll be working with you guys. If you need any help, let us know. Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next slide. So this is Unit 1. We're going to talk about XCode basics and table views. All right, so after we teach you guys everything we do in the lab today, and by the way, we're not turning anything into the lab today. What you guys will be turning in is this Flix app, and you guys will be working on this over the weekend or whatever. There's going to be, if you guys go to the course portal, let me go ahead and get out really quick. You guys should have access to the course portal once you're accepted to the program. And then if you go into Unit 1 and assignment, here you should see Flix Part 1, and there's like video tutorials on how to do everything. And it's kind of step by step because we know that most of you guys don't have any Xcode experience. So it's quite fast, but after we do multiple assignments, you guys should start getting a hang of things. So that's what you guys are going to be working on over the weekend. And I believe that is going to be due the night before next class. So that's going to be Monday night at 12. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's when it's due. If there's any questions, go ahead and ask in the Slack. Here are the videos. This is like kind of what the layout is going to be like. Or you guys have the pre-work project, so it's going to be in that same format. So as I just showed you, you guys are going to submit stuff through the course portal. And make sure you guys have your GitHub set up because we're going to actually be submitting through GitHub URLs. And yep, the deadline is going to be Monday at 11:59. Also, if anything comes up, like let's say family issues, I believe you guys have 2 24-hour or 48-hour no questions asked extensions, but you have to email the CodePath admin, I believe 24 hours before it's due. So yeah, that's always an option too if you guys just can't get it finished. Getting help, here's some resources we have for you guys to get help. This is on the discussions. So this is also in the course portal that I just showed you guys. And this is where I actually got all my help last year, because here there's a bunch of TAs, not only from UCI, but along the whole CodePath network that are there to answer any of your questions. And I remember last quarter, I asked one question at like 10 or something, and one of the TAs reached out to me within like a minute or two. So they're very responsive, so make sure you take advantage of this resource. Policy reminder, make sure that you get everything done because we do have the right to kick you guys out if you guys don't have anything completed. Usually the grading's pretty lenient, but there's also a standard that you have to uphold or else, because we can't just let everybody go. Here's the coursework policies. Actually, there's 3, my bad. So there's 3 48-hour extensions that are no questions asked. Only one extension can be applied per assignment or milestone. After 3 extensions have been used, you'll receive a grade for whatever state your project is in at the deadline. No submission is 0 points and 70%, so on and so forth. And you need a 60% or above to pass. And what the pass does is it gives you a certificate at the end of the class, which you guys can show off on your LinkedIn and so on. So the grading scales in the syllabus and the points for each assignment are in the README templates. And you guys will learn more about that later when you look at the actual assignments. All the instructions are there. Unit 1 homework recap, and I already showed you the portal, the flex part due. This is not Tuesday midnight. This is a Monday at midnight. So just try to finish that before then. Reminders, the assignment is due by the posted deadline. Get started early, so whenever you run into issues, you can ask questions on the forum. So right now we have tentative office hours where you guys can go into Slack and ask us questions, and that's going to be Monday and Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. We're also there if you guys have any questions, you guys just want to hop in, then go ahead and do that. If you have questions not during the office hours, then you guys can refer to either the Slack or the discussion board and other resources. Let's pause real quick. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, that looks like it's it. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Minja present. Can I have the link for the Slack page? Could one of the directors send that to her? And Minja, do you want to start presenting?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ethan.
All right.
All right. So just going to be giving you guys a quick overview of XCode. This is review for whoever attended the Unit 0 workshop we had last week. But it's just good to kind of familiarize yourself with the environment that you're going to be working in before you start on your first project. All right, next slide, please. So this is XCode. This is the app that you're going to be using to develop all of the projects we assign in this class and do all of the labs. And so I'm just going to draw your attention to the top first, where the toolbar is located. And the toolbar is basically where you're going to be monitoring and changing a couple important features of Xcode. For example, the play button in the top left is what I'm going to be using to run all my apps, build and run them. And two buttons to the left, to the right of that, you can kind of see something that says iPhone 11 Pro Max. This is where I'm going to be controlling the simulator. And so what Xcode provides for us built in is a feature that allows you to run apps on a virtual sort of device on your Mac. And it's really handy for debugging and seeing what it looks like in real life on a handheld device. So that's pretty important to remember. In the middle, we have a bar that displays the status of your current project, the build progress, and things like that. And on the right, there's a button with a plus sign, and I'm going to be using that to add objects to the user interface, to the editor tab in the middle later. More on that in a little bit. And on the most top right-hand side of the window, we also have things that I can use to hide and show different parts of the screen. On the left-hand side, highlighted in pink, is the navigator area. The navigator area is used to access and go through a bunch of different files, which is helpful when you're trying to change different parts of your project. In the middle, highlighted in yellow, we have the editor area. This is where you're going to be doing all of your coding, typing all your text, changing up the UI however you like it. Editor tab is going to be basically the most important part of Xcode for you. At the bottom, we have the debug area highlighted in blue. That's where the console is located, where program output is going to be printed, where you can control breakpoints and things like that, and figure out what's going on wrong with your code. And on the very right, highlighted in orange, is called the inspector area. The inspector area is where you're going to be customizing very small details and fine-tuning aspects of your project. And you'll see what I mean once we get into the building part of our first lab. So this is just a very brief overview. It's fine if you don't remember anything. A lot of information, just kind of rush through it. But this is just to make sure that you don't go in blind when we start our first lab in just a little bit. All right, next slide, please. Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and let Min just share his screen.
Yep. Let's get coding. All right.
And then I just want to preface and let everybody know that what we're going to be presenting, it's going to be a lot of information, and it's likely that not much of it is going to really stick. However, our approach is we're going to let you guys do the hands-on labs, and slowly over time, you guys are going to get more and more proficient. So just don't get discouraged, stick with it, and you guys will get it eventually.
All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Looks good.
Hold up. Hold up. What does my screen look like right now? Is it just the pane that says welcome to Xcode?
Yeah, looks good. No,
All
it's your whole computer. Yeah.
Are there any other tabs open?
Nope.
All right, cool. Okay, guys. So go ahead and open up Xcode if you haven't already. And this is probably the screen you're going to see. It says welcome to Xcode. A couple things on the right hand side, a couple things on the left. I'm going to click on create a new Xcode project. Interesting. All right. Then I'm going to click on single view app, which should already be selected, and then click on next. I'm going to type in a name. For me, it could just be Unit 1 Lab. Make sure that the language that's selected is Swift. It should already be Swift. And make sure that for user interface, Storyboard is the selected option here. The other one is Swift UI, and we don't want to be using that for this week. All right, click next. I'm going to save it wherever you want to, and then hit create. All right. And before I get any further into this, just want to give a heads up. So Ethan, Hermaine, and Derek, who introduced themselves earlier, are here to help you guys out. And so if I'm going too fast, let me know that, of course. But if there's anything else, more personal issues, you can private message them in Zoom chat, or yeah, just private message them and they can help you out. And if necessary, they can create a breakout room and help you guys out there if you have any really, really specific issues. All right. Okay, so this is our app. I'm going to be clicking into this file on the left-hand side called main.storyboard. So go ahead and go into that. All right. Okay. One sec. Actually. Okay, so this is what my screen looks like right now. And in the middle, we have an image of an iPhone screen. And for this one, I'm going to be changing. This is, as many of you may recognize, an iPhone 10, iPhone 11, that generation of iPhones, that kind of screen. I'm going to click into the bottom left here and click on View As and select. For me, it's the third one from the right, iPhone 8. And so what this is a selection of devices that I can develop my app on. And as you can see, it's just going to change the display icon in the middle of the screen. I prefer iPhone 8 because it's nice and rectangular, and it also doesn't have the weird sort of dip at the top of the screen that the iPhone 10 and 11 have. And so it's just what I prefer to develop on. You on your own, you can play around with whatever you want. You can hide and minimize this thing by clicking on View As. And so today we're going to be developing a very basic table view setup. And so for those of you who don't know what a table view is, if you just think of kind of the top apps in the store today, such as Instagram, Twitter, the Snapchat section where you have a bunch of snaps you can open. So anything that can scroll, all of those sort of have like a screen where there's a bunch of little sort of text boxes. And as you scroll, it's going to pull up more. And each of them contain text and images and things like that. And so in iOS and Xcode, we call that a table view. And it's used as a basis for a lot of really popular apps today. So today we're going to be getting started with table views because it's one of the easiest things to get into, although you still may be feeling overwhelmed at the end of this class. And in the next 6 to 10 weeks, we're going to be using table views, you know, pretty much everywhere because they serve as a foundation for a lot of apps today. So if everyone's on the screen, I'm going to be adding a table view, just a table view to my screen just to start off. And in order to do that, I'm going to be clicking 5 buttons from the right on the very top right of my screen. There's a plus sign. So I'm going to click that and go into the object library. And this is where I'm going to be able to select objects such as, for example, a label or a button or a text field and add them to my screen. So I'm just going to type into the search bar, table view, click and drag that onto my screen. Sorry, I apologize. My computer's a little bit slow, but all the way starting from the top left corner of the screen and drag the bottom right so that it extends all the way to the bottom. So make sure it covers the entire screen. All right. After that, what I'm going to do is go into the left side of my screen where the file manager is, and then move my mouse over a file called viewcontroller.swift, hold the Alt Option key, and then left click on it. So again, I moved my mouse over viewcontroller.swift, held the Alt/Option key on Mac, and then left clicked on it. And what that's going to do is open up another window, so I can have 2 panes open at the same time.
So in the video, some of you guys may have realized that Tim uses the assistant editor, but he's actually using an outdated version of Xcode. So this is how we do it in newer versions. You just go over and hold Option and then click, and then that could be your temporary assistant editor.
Yeah. So then I'm going to go ahead and just hide this pane really quickly for more space. And the way I do that is by clicking on this icon right here. And we have a lot of these all over the interface, so I can hide and show the debug area like that. And if you want to rearrange any part of your screen, you have the freedom to do so. All right. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my mouse over this the thing that says Table View Prototype Content. Make sure this is selected. Another option is I can go into this area, expand this window again, and then click on Table View and make sure that's selected. And then hold the Control button, click, and drag it into this window with code in it that says Class View Controller. So, sorry, someone asked, how do you get the phone screen to come back if you accidentally closed it? That one should be in the file main.storyboard, and you can find that file on the left side of your screen. So just click into main.storyboard and it will pop up again. And yes, we are recording the session. All right. So what I just did is control dragged into this window with text in it, right below Class View Controller and above override function. And this sort of window popped up. Connection should be outlet, object view controller. For name, I'm just going to be typing table view. Type should be table view, and it should be weak, and then I hit connect. All right, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit.
If you want to make the font bigger, go to Window, I believe, and then there's some stuff, or that works too.
Yeah. All right, so this is what I have right here. And now it says new, should be a new IB outlet, weak variable table view. That's a UI table view. And this circle right here should be filled. And when I highlight it, it highlights this as well, which effectively what I just did is connected the table view that I dragged into my phone screen and connected it with code. And so when we're developing iOS apps, a very common way that we're going to be connecting what we make on the screen with code is by creating these outlets. And so with the table view, I have that option. With text, with images, I have that option as well. And I didn't mention earlier, but this screen right here, when I hover over it, it says View Controller. What view controller is basically just a term in Xcode or iOS development for just a window. And each screen is going to be its own individual view controller. And that's how I'm going to be developing more complicated apps in the future. We're going to have several different view controllers, each with corresponding code files and yeah, things like that. All right. So after I've successfully connected my table view to the code, I'm going to close the main.storyboard window. All right. And I'm going to click into this code file. And right after class view controller, UI view controller, I'm going to add UI table view. All right. Okay, well, I was waiting for it to suggest something for me, but it didn't. Okay, there it is. UI table view delegate. Xcode is really good about suggesting or auto-filling text, auto-completing. And so usually what I do is kind of type halfway and then just wait for it to suggest. So I'm going to press enter. It'll auto-complete that for me. And I'm also going to add UI table view data source. So UI table view delegate and UI table view data source. And if I complete that and wait a little bit, it'll actually give me an error. And it's going to say, you know, type view controller does not conform to blah, blah, blah. Do you want to add this? Yes, I do. And I'm going to click fix. And what it's going to do is add, these two are called protocol stubs, but it's going to add these little functions for me. And so for purely aesthetic purposes, I'm going to move this to the bottom. I prefer to have all my variables kind of defined at the top of the screen, and then all the functions and anything else I need at the bottom. And so what this does is basically Xcode requires that every time we create a table view, it's going to call a delegate and a data source. And so what this function is going to tell it is how many rows you want to create in your table view. So for each Instagram post you see, each post is kind of its own row. And if I have 20 of them, I can tell Xcode I want 20. If I have 50, I can tell Xcode I want 50. And so you're going to be returning that number. And for now, we can just put 50 as an example. And we'll go more into this later. Okay. And then, yeah, and this part is going to tell Xcode, what content am I going to have in each cell? And so just a heads up, you're probably not going to understand most of this code at first. When I took this course, I was pretty confused about the things I was typing. But in a 10-week course, we're not going to be able to touch on every single little detail of Swift. And so a lot of the times, what I used to learn on my own was doing the assignments. There's a bonus portion with a bunch of extra tasks you can do. Doing that, researching Swift on your own, and you can get a lot from that. In the course, in the labs during class, we're going to be touching on a lot of the important basics, but there's no way we're going to be able to cover all of it. So for this one, I'm just going to be typing, let cell equals UI table view cell, and then 2 parentheses after that, and then return cell. So just in this demo, I'm going to be creating a very basic cell. For those of you who recognize what this is kind of a constructor with a blank cell, and I'm going to be returning that. And it basically just tells the table view that, hey, I have 50, and each of them is going to be a blank cell for now. Can you do infinite rows? Yes, you can. You know how Instagram has an infinite scroll function where it seems like it's never going to end? Same with apps like TikTok. Yes, we can, and we will get more into detail with that later. And how do you get those functions to automatically load? What I did was previously up here, it only said UI view controller. I typed a comma and then UI table view delegate. So just as an example, if I type in UI table view it'll have a bunch of options, and UI table view delegate is going to be one of the auto completion options. And then it'll pop up. And then I did the same with UI table view data source. And if you just let these sit here for a little bit, Xcode is going to raise error saying, hey, you're missing these two functions. And you're going to click on the error. It'll ask if you want to add 2 protocol stubs. Click fix, and then it'll do this automatically for you. All right. So one other thing we're going to have to add is we're going to have to tell Xcode that these 2 functions exist. So I'm going to go into this thing that says override function viewDidLoad, and right below super.viewDidLoad, I'm going to type in table view dot delegate autocomplete that equals self, as well as table view dot data source equals self. Can we slow down a bit? Yeah, sure. I'll leave this code on my screen for just a little bit so everyone can copy it down. Can I repeat a step whenever I do something? Yeah, sure. So just to go over everything that I typed in this window, I added UI table view delegate and then UI table view data source right after this text that says class view controller, UI view controller. And then Xcode raised an error saying I was missing 2 protocol stubs, which are required every time you create a table view. And then I clicked on the error. It gave me an option to fix it. And then it wrote these in for me. And this function basically tells a table view, hey, how many rows do I want? And so just as an example, I put 50. You can put 10 or whatever number you find is appropriate. And this function basically tells Xcode, hey, what do I want to put in each cell? I have, eventually I'm going to have text. And if you're like Instagram, you have a photo, you have a specific layout, and this is going to tell Xcode exactly what you want to put into each cell and then return it as each cell is called. And then after that, inside override function viewDidLoad, under the line that says super.viewDidLoad, I wrote table view.delegate equals self and table view.data source equals self. And if you let Xcode autocomplete it, it makes typing a lot faster and makes sure that your code is mostly error-free. What is the data type of the cell you're returning? It's of UI table view cell, and that's a class that we're going to be going into more detail in just a second. So more on that later. So if you wanted 10 different cells with different text, would you write each line of the bottom function? Not exactly, and we'll be going over that later too. That dash right here, basically what that tells you is, try not to go too much into Swift, but normally every time you declare this is a list of parameters. Every time you called this function, you would never do this because Xcode calls table view protocol stubs automatically. But without this dash, every time you called a function, you would have to name its parameters and then give it a value after. This just ensures that you can just call table view parentheses and just list the values itself. Just a little detail of Swift. You're not really going to have to know much about that this far in the course yet. Yeah. All right. Hopefully everyone's caught up by now. If you have any more questions, remember you can ask Ethan, Derek, or Hermaine in the chat. try to go a little bit slower, and I'll try to repeat my steps as I go, just to make it easier to follow. All right, so I'm going to return to main.storyboard. Click on the object library again, and again, I open that with the plus sign in the top right corner. And I'm going to type in table view, and table view cell should come up. So just like with the table view, I'm going to click and drag this into the window. Yep. And so you can see on the left here, this gives you sort of an overview of the structure of everything. Like the view controller is the main screen, like I told you. The view is another subcategory. And I just set a table view, and within it, I have a table view cell. And you can see that the cell just popped up right here. I can resize it a little bit if I want. And it's only going to show one prototype cell, but what the code and what Xcode sort of does automatically is it'll repeat as many of these cells as you want. And that's how we're going to get the Instagram or the Snapchat or the TikTok effect, where we have a bunch of repeating things that go as we scroll. All right. So what I'm going to do next is go into my file manager in the left-hand side, right-click on the folder labeled whatever you called it. Mine is called Unit 1 Lab. And I'm going to create a new file. Actually, I'm going to give people a little bit of time to catch up if you haven't already. What I just did is I went into the object library, typed in table view cell, and then drag that into the window. So we just have a cell ready right here. How do you get to the list of contents? I think you're referring to this. This right here, it might be hidden by default, but I hide and show that from, I'm not sure if you can see, but right here at the bottom, I have an icon that looks like a square with a little white thing on the left side of it. And if I click here to expand it, I can open and close it. And then each of these also has a little arrow that I can use to close and expand and show the stuff that's inside of them. Yeah. All right, table view here, cell right here. We're going to move on to the next step. So I'm going to right click on Unit 1 Lab, which is the name I have for this folder right here. And then click on New File. And the type that's automatically selected is Cocoa Touch class. And Cocoa Touch class is going to be the default file type that we use every time we create a new view controller or a new file for our projects. Yeah. Make sure you click on the right folder, like Ethan's saying in the chat. Because if you don't have the file within the folder that contains all these other things, if we try to access the file, you will run into issues. So I'm going to name the class student cell, because what we're going to do later on is our table view is going to be just a list of student names, just for this very basic example. It should be a subclass of UI table view cell. Language is Swift, that's correct. I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes or a couple seconds just to copy this down. Again, what I did is I right-clicked on the folder, clicked on New File, and then this window popped up for me. All right. And again, I named mine student cell. subclass of UI table view cell, and language is Swift. All right, I'm gonna save it in the same folder where all my other files are located so that my code can access them. All right. And here we have a new file, and you can see this in the navigator area where we have the file manager right here. So I'm going to click into main.storyboard again. And just like I did earlier, I'm going to hold the Option key on my Mac, left click on student cell, and open up the file that we just created right next to the main.storyboard pane. Again, I moved my mouse over studentcell.swift, held down the Option key, and then left click on this. So what that does is kind of open up an assistant editor where I can have my code and my storyboard open simultaneously. Yeah. And as you do more projects in the course and you build table views and you get more familiar with them, you'll realize that each table view is just an identical set of steps. And so the steps that I'm laying out during this class, you're going to end up learning by heart pretty much and repeating them over and over again. And so each time it's going to be the same set of steps. Just got to get more familiar with them as time goes on. All right. Sorry, just one more thing before I continue. There's one little thing I forgot. You need to tell XCode and your project of the existence of this file. And this is called student cell. And I want to connect this to my table view cell that I have right here. So I'm going to make sure that table view cell is selected right here. And you can tell if it's highlighted. I'm going to go into what looks like a driver's license up here. I like to call it that. But the real name for it is the identity inspector. I'm going to click into that within the inspector area on the right-hand side. Just give everyone a bit of time to get there. Again, I selected the table view cell and then went into the inspector area on the right and then clicked into the identity inspector, which looks like a driver's license sort of icon. And then I'm going to click into class where I can select a name. And in the dropdown, it should just have student cell right here for me as a suggestion. And this should happen if you did it right. So what we're doing is we're kind of linking the cell we created with the file and telling it, hey, we want this code to be associated with this object we just created. I'm going to click into the inspector right, one icon to the right of that. It looks kind of like an arrow sort of thing pointing downward. It's called the attributes inspector, I believe. And we're going to have to put the name of each cell in two places. And so every time you create a table view, every time you create a cell within that table view, you're going to put the name first within the class section of the identity inspector. And then we're going to put it one more time in this box that says reuse identifier. And I'm going to type in student cell. And if you named your file a different thing than me, I'd recommend you name everything exactly what I'm naming it to avoid errors. But if you do name it something else, for example, like name cell or something like that, it has to be consistent with these two things that you just type into this text box. Otherwise, Xcode is going to get very confused. And one other thing that I like to point out that a lot of kind of people who are new to Swift trip over a lot is that if I name a file incorrectly, and you think that just going into it and changing the name here is gonna fix it. A lot of the times that's gonna cause you even more errors in Swift. And so usually what happens is you have to delete the file and start over because everything in Xcode is sort of tied to one another. For example, once I name this student cell or once I name something else, all of that is going to be tied underneath through, here's a more specific example, but where I connect the table view, can I go back? All right. So I have table view selected, student cell selected, and then I just named within this driver's license icon, this section under class, I put student cell. Yeah, capital S, capital C. We tend to name our classes and on our files with all capital letters, or capital letters to start with. And then each word after that is capitalized as well. And the second spot that I put down this name is underneath the attributes inspector right here, which is one button to the right of the identity inspector. And it looks kind of like an arrow pointing downward. And yeah, right here under identifier, I put the name student cell. Yeah. All right, hopefully everyone is caught up by now. If you're lagging a little bit behind or you're having issues with something, feel free to message anyone in the chat who's willing to help. And what I was mentioning earlier about kind of having an issue with renaming variables and that breaking your code, you can see here from the circle that I created earlier, this outlet that links my table view to this variable inside my code called table view. If I tried to let's say I type like tab view or something like that. If I tried to rename that, I would actually run into an issue. And so if that really does happen, the way for me to fix it is I have to go to refactor. So I just right clicked on this, refactor, rename, and then it'll select every single spot in your code where the name table view exists, and then it'll change it accordingly. Just a little detail. Hopefully you guys don't run into this issue, but if you do and your code is not working, just know that renaming things might be the cause. Yeah. When you go to the menu, next to the identity menu, is the student cell supposed to autofill? So I'm going to go back here once again. Student cell is selected. The menu next to the identity menu is the attributes inspector. Here, no, it's not going to autofill. So usually if you do it right, class will autofill because it recognizes it as a file here. But the identifier usually will not. So you got to type it out yourself. Does refactor work for files? I'm not actually sure about that, but yeah, usually it's just good to kind of delete everything and start over. Or delete that specific file. Yeah. All right. For anyone else with issues, please consult the chat, and I'm going to be moving on to the next step. So I'm going to be going into the identity, or sorry, not the identity inspector, the library, once again, the object library, clicking the plus sign in the top right-hand corner. And then in this time, I'm going to be looking up label, which actually should be the very first option. And so just like the table view and the cell that we added earlier, label is an object that we can add to our UI. So I'm going to click and drag this into my prototype cell. All right, let's put it kind of where these two lines recommend. in the top left corner. And a label is just Swift's name for basic text. And so within each of these cells, I'm going to be displaying the students' names. And so a label is exactly the thing that I need. All right, and I don't want this to just say label. Actually, I'll wait a little bit for everyone to catch up if you're having trouble. Again, I went into the object library by clicking the plus sign. And the first option right here is label. And so just click, drag that right into the top left-hand corner, and you should be good. Yeah. All right. And I don't really want this just to be called label. Usually, even though we're going to be changing this within the app, you know, for example, an Instagram username is going to change depending on who's logged in, or you know, a Facebook post is going to be different depending on what the person typed. Right here, we're going to want to have some basic text that's just going to tell me what this is. And so I can select it and then double click to change my text. Or I can go into, remember what this area is called? This is called the inspector area, where I can customize little attributes within my objects. Right below where it says text is plain, there's a text field where I can type in, you know, what I want to change this to. So there's two different areas you can click on. Double click this, or go into the inspector. Then I'm going to type in student name and press enter. So this is a nice descriptor for what's going to be inside of my cells. So once again, I just dragged a label from the object library into the cell, placed it in the top left corner, and then changed it to student name. So if I just look at this very basic layout, I can tell exactly what's going on. This is the name of the student, and that's pretty much all I need. All right, so we've typed a lot of code and we haven't really seen our app in action yet. So what I'm going to do is open up the simulator for the first time and see if our code works. So I'm going to go into the toolbar, and the top left should say Unit 1 Lab and then some sort of device. I'm going to click on the right-hand side of that and then select iPhone 8, since that corresponds to the device that I designed it on. And I'm just going to hit run. And you can see it's building 22 out of 33 tasks, however many, and it usually takes a while, especially if you have an older laptop. So just give it a little bit. Yeah, this is a good time for anyone who's struggling with anything or falling behind to catch up. Code screen real quick, couple seconds. Yeah. So this is viewController.swift. All right. All right, simulator is still loading, it looks like. Yeah. Yeah, and again, make sure you're simulating it on an iPhone 8, since that's the one that corresponds to sort of the screen that we designed it on. If not, you might have a bunch of issues with text fields and things looking wonky like that, and we don't really want that to happen. So, all right. Looks like it's still loading. Sorry, my laptop is a little bit old, and so it takes a while to process everything.
So while we're waiting for Minja's thing to load, so I said, Carlos said my label doesn't show up. So one reason why that might be happening is you guys might not have the student name all the way to the top left-hand corner. If you guys look at Minja's screen right now, if you notice, his student name label is all the way to the top left, top left of the prototype cell. And do you want to explain kind of why that is, Minja?
So there's actually two reasons why your label might not be showing up. The first one is that once we get into the next step, because we don't have constraints set in place, which tells the app where your label is going to be, sometimes it might misplace it by accident. So we'll go into that a little bit more later. And the other kind of reason why it's not happening is because before I clicked run on the simulator, there's one little connection I forgot to make, which is connecting, you know how everything is based on outlets and connecting code to objects? I actually forgot to connect this student name label into any of my code. And so for all my code nodes, this label doesn't even exist. And so in just a second, I'll be finishing up that step. And then Ethan will take over from there. And then we can get a working app. And then eventually names will show up in your simulator. So don't worry about it. We'll fix this one by one. So right now on my simulator, we can see kind of exactly what we wanted at this stage. We have, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but little sort of cells, which each of which is a table view cell. And I can actually scroll and it'll kind of bounce when it hits the top and bottom, which is basically what our code is telling you to do right now. All right. How do you get the iPhone to show up on top of the Xcode window? Bit tedious to swipe multiple windows. I'm not in full screen mode, and so everything's just on this one desktop. There's going to be a simulator icon that pops up on the very right side of your device on the dock, and I can just click on it. Yeah. All right. All right, and the last thing that I mentioned earlier that I did not do yet is I'm going to click into studentcell.swift. Sorry. I'm going to stay in main.storyboard and then option click on studentcell.swift. Make sure I have the student name selected, and you can confirm that based on which thing is highlighted inside this object structure. And this time I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to control drag from here, but it's the same as pressing control and dragging from here. But this time I'm just going to select student name, hover over it, hold control, click and drag into the student cell file. And then it says insert outlet or out collection, which is correct. I'm going to let go. And then this window is going to pop up. Yeah. And then I can just type a name again. This is called creating an outlet. Maybe just student name or student name label. It's good convention to kind of end your things with the type they are. For example, if it's a button, maybe student name button or label. Yeah. But, yeah. So once everything looks correct here, it should be of type UI label. It should be an outlet. I'm going to click connect, and this thing should pop up right here. All right. Again, what I just did is I option clicked to open this file here at the same time as I have my storyboard open, and then control and drag into into this text file. Someone says still nothing is showing up. Don't worry about it. There's still a couple more steps to go before you can get your text to show up on your windows. But this is the last step I'm going to be showing you guys, which was making the connection with an outlet from the text into the file. And I'm going to pass it on to Ethan just a second to finish it up for you guys. After we connect to the code, if we delete that part of the code, is the connection broken? Not exactly. So if I delete this text right here, this outlet will still exist. And that's why kind of a lot of things are hidden underneath. And that's why when you rename stuff or change things that are just text only, you might run into a couple issues with stuff that's happening in the background. Yeah. All right. I think that should be it on my part. Ethan, if you'd like to take over, then we can proceed from there. One sec.
All right, give me 1 second. Let me get my stuff set up.
Yeah, sure thing. If anyone wants to review the code files for now, within Student Cell, we don't have much. As you become familiar with later on, you know how I said it's kind of a formula or a recipe or a set of steps to build a table view. Within the cell, all you're gonna have to do is connect outlets to just text or images or the individual things inside the cell and not really do much with them. Everything's gonna be done in the main view controller file for that screen, as Ethan is gonna show you in just a little bit. You ready for this, Ethan?
Yup. All right,
Okay.
I'll go ahead and share my screen. One second. All right, can everybody see my screen? All right. So let's take a look at the code. This is where Minja left us off. I'm just going to keep it here for a little bit if anybody needs time to catch up.
Can you zoom in just a little bit?
Sure.
Command plus is what I used to do.
Got it. Is that good? All right. So let me just go over what we have on the screen right now again really quickly. Again, at the beginning, we only had the view controller here, but then we went ahead and added the UI table view data source and UI table view delegate subclasses. And this is, again, part of the formula for whenever you make a table view. And that should go ahead and auto put in the stubs, the two table view stubs down here. Again, that's just part of the formula of making a table view. I'm not sure why it's not defaulted that way, but that's just something we have to work around. And then we have the table view outlet here. How I like to think of outlets are kind of as imports. Let's say you have a Python project and you want to use some variables from another file. It's kind of akin to importing that, so you can use it in here. Again, as Ben just said, if we don't import it, then it's almost like Xcode doesn't know that it's there in the main storyboard. Okay, and then let's see what we can add to this code. So first of all, what I want to do is underneath the table view.data source, I'm going to go ahead and press enter and type in table view.reload data. Once again, underneath table view.data source in the view did load function, I'm typing in table view.reload data. And as many of you probably guess, this kind of does what it says it does. It reloads the data. If you've noticed in Xcode, a lot of the functions kind of are named in a way that are kind of intuitive. For example, view did load. This function is triggered whenever the view of whatever view controller you're on loads. So this is going to happen once for every time you load in the app. Yeah, so I went ahead and added table view.reload data. And what I want to do now is, if you go here to the first stub where we returned a number, I think Minja put 20. I'm not sure. Was it 50 or 20? I think it was 20. But instead of 50 now, what we are going to want to do is, I'm sorry, let me do something before that. So let's go ahead and go underneath the outlet, the table view, and let's have a list of names for us to put inside our view controller, our table view. So what I'm going to do is let students, and we've been using var most of this time, but let is basically a constant. So this is why we're using let, because right now, as of now, we're just going to keep this constant, keep it simple. Later on, we're going to do other things with this. So let's type in some names. This can be whatever you want. Make sure to do double quotes because Xcode needs double quotes. Just go ahead and add, I don't know, 5 to 10 names. And I'll wait for you guys to catch up. This may look similar to what you guys have seen in other languages. Looks like in a list and array, and that's what it is. And you'll find a lot of the control systems are similar to other languages. There's some nuances, but again, that's kind of with every coding language, and we'll just pick them up eventually with more practice. Basically, what we're making right now is a list of names, which we are gonna put into the actual table view. And I'll wait a little bit for everyone to catch up. Again, we're just making a list of, I don't know, let's say 5 names. Okay, I'm just gonna assume that everybody did that. If you have any questions, again, just feel free to PM Minja, Derek, or Hermaine. So what we're gonna wanna do now is go back to where I was before. So where it says funct table view, and then after the table view, UI table view, it says number of rows in section. We're gonna go into that function right here. Take out the return 50. And what we're gonna do is return students.count. And basically what that does, again, kind of intuitive, it takes the length of students here and it puts it into here. This is because we know how many cells we want to load for now. So there's no point in putting an arbitrary number such as 50. Might as well put something that relates to our actual data at hand. And I'll wait a little bit for everyone. Again, I just put return students.count in the first table view function. All right, so we have one last step, and after we do this step, everything should work. All right, so where it says let cell here, we are going to remove UI table view cell. And in place of UI table view cell, we are gonna put table view dot DQ reusable cell with identifier string. It's the first function that should pop up. And that's a very long and kind of ambiguous name, and you guys may be wondering what that is. In short, without getting too in depth, basically what DQ reusable cell does is it allows the app to load only parts of the table view that are showing in the screen at that one point in time. For example, let's say you're scrolling down Instagram and you just keep on scrolling for like 30 minutes. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, you can't go to sleep, so you're just on Instagram. You wouldn't want Instagram to store all the data of all the information you've loaded because that's just inefficient. There's no way the app could handle that and the app would just crash. So somebody asked earlier if we could have infinite cells, and the answer is yes. And that's because of something like DQ reusable cell, which allows you to empty up space that you've already loaded that is off the screen. So basically, the only things that you're going to be storing in memory is what's showing at that one point in time. So that's, again, how the infinite scroller apps like TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, stuff like that, this is how they work. Okay, and then in place of with identifier, instead of string, we are going to put a student cell here in double quotes. And if you guys recall earlier, when Minja instantiated the student cell in the main.storyboard, in the attribute inspector, one of the parameters was, I believe, identifier, and this is the reason why we changed it. So we can use it in functions like this. So go ahead and put student cell right here. Okay, and then after that is done, what we want to do after is we are gonna want to put as exclamation mark student cell. And what this is doing is it's basically forcing whatever information that's from here to be a student cell to make sure that we don't have any mismatch errors. It's one of those weird Xcode things. I believe if you don't have it here, the later Xcode would come up with an error that says fix, and we can just press the button and it would automatically insert this. For now, as you write programs, if you guys see a fix, I believe, let's say like 9 times out of 10, you can assume that Xcode's solution is correct. Go ahead and press fix, and then it will insert some code, and your code should work after that. Once again, after the with identifier student cell, I just put as exclamation mark student cell. All right, so let's go on. Now what we're going to type is we're going to type let student equal students index path dot row. And basically what this line is doing is this is how we get the information from this list up here so that we can put it into our display. And again, a lot of this may seem really foreign, may not make a lot of sense. Just stick with it. You guys will understand soon. We're not going to dive into every little small bit of code. But yeah, just take our word for now. And then later on, we'll figure out why that's that. And we have one more line before everything should work. Right here, we put cell.student name label dot text equals student. And what this line does is it sets the text from our main.storyboard, this text right here, to whatever information we pass it. And again, the information that we're passing it is the information from this list right here. So I'll give you guys a little bit of time to catch up. Before you run, could you review exactly where our label should be placed inside the cell? Sure. So let's go. I'm gonna leave this for, I don't know, like 5 more seconds to make sure everybody's caught up. If you guys need it again, just let me know and I'll go back to the screen. So let's go back to the storyboard. And in this cell, I'm not sure if a lot of you guys picked up, but we purposely told you to put the student name into the top left-hand corner of the student cell. And as we kind of briefly mentioned before, the reasoning for that is because we want this app to work without setting any constraints, which we will be going over in later lessons, just not right now. Basically, what constraints are constraints set a relational place on the screen for the student name to be. And what I mean by that is, for example, right now, the display that we're working on is an iPhone 8. However, you want your app to work on all phones of all sizes, not just iPhone 8s. So what we would do later is we can do something called constraints, and we can say, oh, so always put this label, for example, 10 pixels from the left-hand side. That way, it's not going to be messed up whenever you have, I don't know, like an iPhone 8 and iPhone 11. It's always going to be at that fixed point. And without that, even if you're using the same phone, sometimes it gets messed up So make sure you keep it in the top left-hand corner. And later on, we're going to be diving deeply into constraints because honestly, most of the times you have issues with stuff not displaying. It's not an issue in your code. It's an issue in your constraints. All right, let's go back to the U controller. And we're going to try to compile this and hopefully everything works. Let's give it a little bit for it to load. And boom, there you go. So here's a list of names into your table view. And if we had more info, it would scroll down. I know it seemed like a lot of work for not that interesting of a result. But later on, as you get more proficient with Xcode, you realize that Swift is actually one of the best languages to easily prototype apps that you're making. For example, at hackathons, I think Swift is one of the best, if not the best language you can use because it's so quick with prototyping. You can come with up with the MVP super quick. And yeah, that's just gonna be something that comes with time. This is your result. I think in the Flix project that you guys are gonna work on over the weekend, we are using a table view. As again, we said earlier, table views are basically used for everything. But instead of the static data that we pushed in as a list, instead of, let's see, instead of just this list, what we're gonna do is we're gonna call to an API, which a lot of you guys may be familiar with if you guys have coded at hackathons. But we're gonna be using get requests, post requests, get information from there, using CocoaPods and then displaying it into our cells so that we can see movies and images as well, not just static text. But for now, that's our whole lab that we have planned. We're gonna stick around before mentors stick around. If you guys have any questions, feel free to stay and ask us some. But if you guys don't have any questions, I'll let you guys go. And thanks for coming. You guys are very welcome. See you guys next week. For the assignment due on Monday, is that Flix part 1? That is correct. Monday at 11:59. So it's just always the day before the next class. And we will send you guys an email with a recap of everything that we went over as well as a recorded video. Where can I find the assignment link? Sure. So if you submitted your stuff correctly, you guys should be able to go into, what I did usually last year is I just go into Google and type in CodePath course portal, and that should pull you up to this portal where you can log in with your GitHub and all your information should be up. Oh yeah, and as Derek typed in chat, we have office hours this Thursday at 3 to 4 p.m. If you guys want to just come say hi, or if you guys have any questions with your code, feel free to stop by. I got an error for your line 33, labeled as thread 1 fatal error, unexpectedly found nil while unwrapping an optional value. Let's see.
I'm guessing that would be in the view controller. Yeah, let's see. Carlos, I can help you out. We are thinking about doing breakout rooms next session, but for this session, we're just going to help people out through the private message on the Zoom chat.
Yeah, that's true.
Carlos, I'll message.
Line 33. The only reason that would happen would be if no information was passed. Maybe your student wasn't created correctly. I don't see why you would be having no.
If Carlos is sure that he has the same exact code, then I would look at the attribute inspector and to see if he, what's it called, did the correct identifier string.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I think the identifier is probably the only thing that could have caused it.
Yeah. Ethan,
Make
can
sure
you
all the
show us-
caps and everything.
Yeah, can you show us how to get to the identifier? Oh, sorry, the reuse identifier. Just, I do not.
Oh, we're looking at the cell, right? Was that for the cell or the label? I forget.
That was for the cell.
Student cell, and then go to the
Yeah.
attribute, or the attribute.
Yeah,
and
so it's a
then-
two-parter.
So first you go to the driver's license, and then for the class, make sure it's student cell, and then go to the one next to the driver's license, and then the identifier should also be student cell. I did not receive the invite for the class today, although I received them last week. Can you guys make sure that I am added to the email? Sure. If you are still here, could you put your email into the chat, and then we'll go ahead and make sure that you're in the list. All right, I'll take care of that. Thank you. The deadline for the first project. So we have class every Tuesday. The projects are always going to be due the day before at midnight. So the next project, Flix Part 1, is going to be due at 11:59 p.m. Monday night. All right, I will add you guys to the email list. Oh, okay. So did everything work? Sweet.
Sweet. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah. If you guys have questions, feel free to ask.
Only going to get more flooding from me.
I wonder why all their emails weren't going through. It seemed like
Yeah.
everybody had the issue. Wait, how did they even get to this email?
Maybe word of mouth.
Something something like that.
Maybe.
Huh. Interesting.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hello.
So I was tonight is the due for the TEEP calculator, right? At 12.
I believe we pushed that back. Am I right about that, Derek?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The tip calculator deadline, we pushed that back to next weekend, I believe.
Yes.
So
And
when is the
what day was that?
Here, let me figure this out.
Yeah, it's
I
not
don't
due
have the exact
it's
date
not
on
due
it.
today though. Yeah, so
Oh.
Kingsley said the 12th.
Yeah. Let's see, hold
It
on.
should be due Sunday night on the 12th
and
at 11:59.
cool.
Yeah.
And Wang Ming Ja, are
Yeah,
you
what's up?
the instructor?
So me, Ethan, Derek, and Hermaine, who's also in the call right now, all four of us are going to be sharing the load. And so for any questions, you can contact either or any one of us four.
Oh, nice. So for the so I was actually watching and doing this TEEP calculator right now. And when would be the like real classes will start for this?
When the real classes will start, technically this is the first real class. We're currently in week 1. And
Okay.
so once you complete the tip calculator and you submit it and you're accepted, you should get to work on the project that we talked about a little bit earlier, Flix Part 1, which you'll be able to find in your assignment portal. And so that's kind of the first real assignment for this class, and it's due next Monday at 11:59. And so the pre-work deadline is Sunday at 11:59, but classes are already kind of picking up, and we're going to get into more advanced stuff later on. And so real class as of now has already begun.
Oh,
And-
okay. So today is the first real class.
Correct.
Yeah, and just to add on to Minja, lucky for you, the first couple of projects are really in-depth walkthroughs. So it's kind of just like holding your hand and making sure that you know everything that's going on in Flix Part 1 and also with the pre-work tip calculator. So don't be hesitant or afraid to approach them, because I feel like the walkthroughs do a really good job at explaining what to do.
Right, and whenever
Yeah.
you need help, you can always ask on Slack and the discussion channel. They're
Yeah.
always available. Like
We're
most of you.
monitoring it.
I find Slack is pretty confusing. I'm not
Slack is like, confusing in the beginning.
Yeah, I am not a Slack person. I will probably email you guys or like come to the Zoom. You guys will be, some of you will be Zoom every day on a time.
On Thursday from 3 to 4.
Okay.
And if you can't make it to that, also, as I mentioned earlier, in your course portal where you find the Flix assignment, there should be a tab that says discussions. And when you post in there, you can post a question, and then that gets sent to all CodePath TAs, not just at UCI, but in the nation. And they have really, really quick response times, so they could get back with you. I did that last quarter, and they hopped on a Zoom call with me immediately, and they helped me resolve my problem. So that's another option for you as well.
Oh, nice. So
Yeah.
like for and all together, how many classes there will be?
I believe there's 6 or 7, because the last couple of weeks are going to be dedicated for a final project. But yeah, there should be, I believe, 6 or 7 classes.
Only
It's
6, 7
6
classes.
classes.
You will be done with that iOS course.
Yeah, so after 6 sessions, so we're going to be doing 6 different labs. We're going to be walking you through 6 different topics in conjunction with the projects that you're doing, the app number 1, 2, and 3. Then we do a group project section, and then you'll be completing the course. And that will be concluded after week 10, right around finals.
Okay.
So it's about a quarter-long class.
And how am I going to catch up if I'm also taking college courses. So I'm actually a junior in University at Buffalo, computer science and engineering. So like, if I miss any class, how can I catch up with that class?
Yeah, so perfect question, because this quarter, since we're doing online lectures, we're going to be recording the lectures and then posting them afterwards. So if you do miss it, it's okay, because you can look at the lab. And again, just to reiterate on the late work policy, we have 3 40-hour or 40-hour extensions, no questions asked, just turn it in 48 hours after deadline. And just to speak on the balancing of the workload in conjunction with computer science classes, I am also a computer science major, and the other tech fellows are also computer science majors. And the course is designed so that you can take it in conjunction with those courses that you are taking with your university. And in my personal opinion, the workload, it's not as demanding as, let's say, like a upper div class or a really hard like algorithms class. It's just as much work as you want to put into it, but the minimum I would say is like 4 to 5 hours a week. And if you spread that across a couple of days or put that into one chunk of time, you can really benefit a lot from this course.
Yeah. And is my project has to be like, let's say I'm doing the tip calculator. I was actually struggling making as similar to that. Like, does it has to be similar, or I might not make anything flawless.
Yeah.
My code might have bugs, a lot of bugs. If I submit it, is that going to be an issue?
No worries. That's actually a really good question. We're not looking for perfect UI design or perfect, flawless, no bugs. We're just looking for that you get the requirements done. There's README pages at the bottom of each assignment, including the pre-work. It has these certain check marks that you need to have. And as long as you have those check marks, then you're fine. And then you meet the requirements for the assignment. And even if you don't have the check marks, you just won't get full credit. And you're graded based off each project. So it's okay if a single project or a couple projects don't have every single requirement checked off. It's just as long as you try your best and you're just asking questions, we will reach out and help you with any kind of issues that you may come across.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to reiterate, we're not looking for perfect UI design. It's just get those requirements done. And if you want to practice and just go the extra mile, and if you have extra time, you practicing UI is really fun, in my opinion.
Do we have any lecture today, like after this conversation?
Oh, no. So this was the lecture for this week, of week 1. And just anything to keep your head up for is submitting the pre-work. We have office hours on this Thursday from 3 to 4. We'll send reminders through the Slack and through email. And yeah, also the deadline for the next project, which is Flix Part 1. Those 3 things just to keep in mind that are upcoming.
We'll also be sending a recording of this lecture by email.
Yeah.
So will you have your email listed with us?
I think he's frozen. Oh, I'm frozen.
Yeah, I think he froze.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there we go.
Cool. Mohammed, you're getting our emails, right?
Huh?
Are
Yeah.
you getting our Okay, perfect.
I'm getting your emails. Yeah, that's how I found that.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So just look out for your email. We'll send any important updates
Yeah,
to the
definitely.
email and to the Slack. Cool. So you said you're in the University of Buffalo?
Yes, yes, sir.
That's so cool.
Where are you from?
California, Southern California. Yeah,
Mhm.
UC Irvine. Yeah.
All of you from UC Irvine?
Yep.
Oh,
Most of us, but we opened up the course to other students at other universities because it's hard to reach out to students who are not at UCI, since obviously our course spreads through word of mouth, and since we can't be doing that nowadays, we decided to expand virtually and spread the word of mouth virtually, and that's why we decided to open it up for other universities as well, just for
Cool.
this quarter.
cool. It's better to do virtually because CodePath, I heard of CodePath 2 semesters ago, but I was taking a lot of classes and my school is too far from the classes offering in New York City. So I can't make after class, go home and go to CodePath, and it's too much. So I said, I
Yeah.
can't do it. But when I heard of that online thing, I said, hell yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
That's very true.
we offer them once a year online. So every year we offer one semester fully online. So yeah, we do try to compensate for that.
Real quick, just so I can stop the recording, is there any other questions?
No.
But yeah, I think you can start the recording. I think the rest of the questions should be like within here.